Hello, everyone. My name is Zaine Wilcox.
I'm Lasley.
I'm Natalie, Covarrubias.
I'm Brandon Gallwitz.
I'm Kaiden, Stoneberg.
And today we're going to be talking about applying the COBE problem solving model to Apple. So just to give a brief history and overview of Apple, Apple was founded in April 1976 by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. And for the first 30 years, they predominantly manufactured personal computers such as the Apple II Macintosh and then the Power Mac lines. And now today, they are the largest technology company in existence that offer a variety of products and services. They generated $274.5 billion in revenue in 2020. They offer products such as iPhones, iPads, Macs, and services such as Apple Music, as well as the iCloud and many others. They're now the second most valuable company in the world, just behind Microsoft, and they are also the fourth largest PC vendor, as well as smartphone vendor manufacturer in the world as of 2021. So Apple's mission and purpose, their mission statement is to bring the best user experience to its customers through its innovative hardware, software, and services. This is accomplished by highlighting the scope of its operations and exploiting key components of customer needs and satisfactions. The key components that they focus on are best user experience, improving the lives of people, empowerment of the public, as well as top quality products. Along with that, they have a vision statement that states that we believe we are on the face of the earth to make great products, and that's not changing. And they do this by focusing on key components such as innovations, integration of partners and excellence, as well as market specialization. Simply put, Apple exists to provide its customers with high quality products as well as the best services possible. Just to give you an overview about Apple products, their product sales in 2020, they sold over 194 million iPhones, as well as 71 million iPads, and 20 million Mac and MacBook units, which generated $365 billion in revenue. Their two main manufacturing companies that Apple utilizes include Foxconn and Pegatron that span over 30 total countries. And of these 30 total countries, 6 countries make up 80% of Apple's total production. Vietnam with 4%, South Korea with 5%, Taiwan with 6%, the United States with 9%, Japan with 16%, and China with a whopping 42% of Apple's total production.
So I'm going to be going over the problem. And the problem is that nearly half of all of Apple's products are manufactured in China. And this makes the dependency on China far too high for Apple. So essentially, all the eggs are in one basket, and this can make Apple's relationship with China a huge liability. This is because Apple must maintain a healthy relationship with China to be successful. At the stroke of a pen, China can announce changes that have serious implications. For example, China has requested Apple to remove the New York Times app, hundreds of VPN apps, Skype, and others. Those are just some of the most popular. And Apple has had to comply to all those just because most of their manufacturing is done in China. Beyond the censorship, trade wars heavily affect operating margins and operational plans. This is especially through tariffs. There's been issues with data storage through iCloud, and an overall slowing economy has made processes difficult for Apple in China. Apple has had to comply because, as mentioned earlier, they do produce nearly half of all their products. To source the materials, assemble, and deliver over 200 million iPhones, Apple has needed China despite all the issues that they've had to tolerate. Also, Apple has struggled to uphold ethical labor standards among its supply chain in China. This is especially true with Pegatron. The grueling deadlines of trying to make 200 million annual iPhones has hurt Apple's reputation, and it's made abuse far too common among their labor standards. A SWOT analysis of Apple will reveal that high prices is one of their biggest weaknesses. And this makes manufacturing outside of China much too expensive. Go back to the last slide. For example, an all-American iPhone would be priced well above $2,000, which is out of the price range of many people. China has a massive workforce, manufacturing technologies, raw materials, and cheap labor availability. These are things you need to manufacture 200 million iPhones a year. So the big question kind of becomes, what does Apple do about this? So why is solving this problem important? The first is reducing the over-reliance on China. This has many upsides. Obviously, they have a tight hold among Apple. Whatever China says goes because they have to comply or else they're not going to be able to meet their demand. And also the global expansion with manufacturing means more customers reach. So whether it's India or any other country, if a product's being produced there, customers are going to buy it if they live there. And so that's just going to give a much bigger reach for Apple.
So analyzing the problem, we look at the cost of labor, and it's one of the largest aspects of the overall price. There are far lower labor costs in China. A skilled worker makes about $100 a week, and that accounts to roughly $2.50 an hour. For an iPhone, it takes about 24 man-hours to produce a phone, which equates to about $60 for the labor cost in China. Average work in the United States is about $25 an hour, and so that would be about $600 in labor cost alone if we were to manufacture in the States. Remembering that Apple makes about 200 million iPhones a year, that'd be about $4.5 billion in lost revenue, or an additional $540 to the retail price. Next slide. And another slide. There's also the availability of parts in Asia and the lack of suitable manufacturing facilities here in the States. To produce phones, Apple has to come up with OLED screens, camera sensors, and a bunch of other parts that are required to make each unit. And each one of those parts requires parts of their own that come from a bunch of different vendors and manufacturers themselves. All of these products are usually all Asia made. So manufacturing can be just down the street. Shipping times are, cut to a minimum. And the rest of the world lost manufacturing in Asia about two to 3 decades ago. And Apple's not alone in this. Cameras have been made in Asia for decades. Samsung creates its Galaxy phone in South Korea, Vietnam, and India. Amazon gets Echo speakers made in China. Google gets the Pixel phone made in South Korea. Next slide. Apple set up rather cleverly with regard to profits in the rest of the world. When they sell to outside of the United States, they have a tax rate of about 2% on the profits that they make. But anything sold in the United States, because they manufacture here, is taxed at about 35%. And so 60% of Apple's sales are made outside of the United States. So this would be a pretty big hit. Revenue for 2020 was about 365 billion. And so 60% of this would end up being about $76.8 billion for the tax rate. Of course, that doesn't include any of the tax breaks that the United States gives. And so even if we took about an eighth of that, it ends up being about $5.2 billion. And that's a pretty heavy hit on the bottom line.
The benchmarking process would help determine and generate alternatives within the COBE problem solving method. Benchmarking compares business processes and performing metrics by using 5 steps: planning, collection of data, analysis of data, implementation, and monitoring. Planning. Apple is struggling to determine the best method for removing their ties from China and diversifying their outsourcing companies. The best alternatives to begin the process of leaving China would be to diversify production into countries like India and Vietnam. As for local manufacturing, it would almost be impossible to move China to the US. Therefore, slowly moving out would be the best alternative until there is a better chance of the US or moving to the US. Collection and analysis of data. It is estimated that India's annual value of production of Apple products will be roughly 6 billion. Meanwhile, it would be 50 to 60 billion in China. However, it seems Apple will be growing its manufacturing in India because there is now 20% of manufacturing of Apple's products done. Apple made it clear that they didn't want to manufacture in Vietnam unless their workers' living situations improved. As the conditions improve, 30% of AirPods are produced in Vietnam, and is also very beneficial in the sense of diversifying production and possibly reducing the trade war between China and the US. Implementation and monitoring. The best alternative would be to continue diversifying their production in order to leave. That way, there is a steady increase of manufacturing and gaining what was lost in the process of leaving, while becoming less dependent on China. While continuing this process and monitoring data, it could possibly lead to Apple finally making its way to the United States.
All right, so now that we've covered so much kind of about the pre-decision making and what the process looks like for that, it's now time to decide on a solution and move forward into new territories and kind of some more manufacturing freedom. So what it looks like next for Apple is just confidently moving forward with their decision to begin the outsourcing process from China when it comes to their manufacturing. They can get to these decisions by utilizing risk and cost/benefits analysis to back the decision that they're going to make. So if the decision needs to be brought before a board of shareholders, they can use these sort of analyses to really back their decision and give proof as to why they should be moving out. They should inform employees and internal personnel of their decision to slowly relocate and what their future plans look like in regard to service processes. It's important that Apple informs their suppliers and their current distribution partners in China of their gradual removal from within the Chinese borders. And then they should begin the transition to operations based in other countries, slowly at first, but eventually the goal would be to altogether be out of China. Along the way, Apple should currently assess how it's going. So in the beginning, taking a boots on the ground approach, having people in the factories and manufacturing facilities is a wonderful way to ensure Apple is maximizing the amount of cost cutting that happens, because transitioning from one country to another is not going to be cheap. Regular executive meetings pertaining to the transition and kind of what the impact and results look like of the geographical relocation of where the manufacturing happens is really important. And then a continuous review of the company's sales and performance metrics would give good indicators of changes in consumer buying behavior, as well as demographic changes in what people are buying the products after Apple has made the decision to move. Beyond the initial move out of China into manufacturing in other countries and eventually into the United States, it's important that Apple continuously searches for more ways to grow. So this includes expanding relationships within these countries. So for example, India and Vietnam, to maximize the positive effect of their relocation, further identifying opportunities to expand their manufacturing processes into other countries, not just Vietnam and India like we're talking about, but other countries, including the United States, and then maintaining an open level of communication with consumers about what changes they would like to see, and then monitoring what the company's image looks like from the consumer standpoint. So kind of in summary, from start to finish, our team determined through the COBE problem solving model using SWOT analysis and some other forms of problem assessment that Apple should and can resolve their Chinese manufacturing problem by initially moving their manufacturing and outsourcing it to countries like India and Vietnam. Once they've been well established in some of those other countries, a gradual move to manufacturing and in the United States, if it financially makes sense, would be the ultimate goal for that. And kind of like we talked about earlier, a more evenly distributed global manufacturing footprint would definitely mean less risk and more satisfied customers if Apple's manufacturing process is spread throughout the world and not just centralized in China.